This is a fun one. This would be a lot more fun if we were allowed to play the video, but we're not. So forgive the tediousness of having to narrate certain parts of this segment. But the New York Post reports Jon Stewart benefited by 829% overvalue of his New York City home, even as he labels Trump's civil case not victimless. So for those who don't know, Jon Stewart,
this story.
Yeah, Jon Stewart did a segment on the Daily Show on Monday, making the case that Donald Trump did actually defraud people and harmed people by overvaluing his property in the New York case, that he recently had to post what ended up being a $175 million bond in order to go forward and try and make his case that he doesn't owe them anything. That's a very expensive appeal, $175 million. Seems like a pretty steep price to be able to make your case that you're not on the hook for something. But that's New York, baby. Comedian Jon Stewart ranted this week that Donald Trump's civil real estate case overvaluing his properties was not victimless. Yet when it came to his own home, Stewart benefited from a similar inflation. On Monday night, Stewart, 61, unpacked Trump's $454 million appeal bond, calling out experts framing the former president's New York civil case as not causing direct harm to any individual. The Daily Show host rolled a clip of CNN's Laura Coates interviewing Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary, who commented that the ruling didn't go over well with the real estate industry that was now fretting over the possibility of becoming the next targets. Coates responds to O'Leary by highlighting that Trump was found liable for falsifying business records in the second degree, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, and conspiracy, all due to asset inflation. In response, Stewart asked, how is he not this mad about overvaluations in the real world? Because they are not victimless crimes, he said. To further his point, Stewart argued that money isn't infinite. A loan that goes to the liar doesn't go to someone who's giving a more honest evaluation, so the system becomes incentivized for corruption. Stewart also contended that failing...
Okay, so let me just say, that's fucking bullshit. Citibank, Chase Bank, Deutsche Bank, they have their fingers in the economies of fucking countries all over the world.
Of course.
I promise you, Deutsche Bank has never said, we would have given you the loan, but Donald Trump got your loan. I promise you that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, and we're talking about figures here that are a drop in the bucket next to what these banks have on hand to loan out.
That's what I'm saying. Like these banks are almost government level assets.
Yeah,
and more than some governments around the world.
Yeah, and that's actually a very right-wing argument that money isn't infinite. That's like saying we can't afford free college in America because
It's just
money we would put into free college has to go somewhere else, and it's not infinite. It's not infinite, even though our military budget's almost $1 trillion a year, right?
Well, I just for a little background on this story, because I still might do it. I don't know if I'll have time though. MSNBC wrote a very approving op-ed piece about how Jon Stewart had seen the light because his last two episodes he stopped his both sidesism and exclusively attacked Donald Trump and Republicans. So basically, I mean, we've seen this since Jon Stewart came back. It's a great case of he should have stayed retired, man. He's just destroying his reputation piece by piece with some of what he did on The Problem, with interviews that he did glowingly with, who do you have on? Hillary Clinton, right? Was it Hillary Clinton?
It was Hillary Clinton, Condoleezza Rice, yep.
And Condoleezza Rice, right. So he was already eroding his reputation. And what he's doing now, he won't stand up to the libs. In the end, he wants to play it like he's the edgy, cool one. He doesn't have those kind of fucking balls. Not at the end of the day. So I believe their op-ed insofar as if MSNBC is writing an approving op-ed, I'm sure he really did do a turnaround where he's not going after Joe Biden anymore. Where apparently he did like a self-own the way he did with his ancient trans bit about Judge Chicks with Dicks. Apparently he did one of those. And some people have been attacking Joe Biden. He did one of those, according to this article. So I saw some of this before this broke. And yeah, the whole segment was bullshit. It was total bullshit. The more you see of Jon Stewart post red pilling, the more you realized a lot of what you swallowed from Jon Stewart back in the day was probably bullshit too. You just didn't realize it.
So Stewart also contended that failing to declare a higher market value on a property while paying taxes based on a lower assessed value constitutes fraudulent behavior. The Attorney General of New York knew that Trump's property values were inflated because when it came time to pay taxes, Trump undervalued the very same property, Stewart added. It was all part of a very specific real estate practice known as lying. It's also a very common real estate practice, which was really Kevin O'Leary's point. But it didn't take long for the internet sleuths to look into Stewart's own property history, which shows his New York City penthouse sold for 829% more than its assessed value, records confirmed by the Post reveal. So before we get into that, he shows a montage in the segment, and like I said, I apologize we have to be kind of tedious about this and narrate and explain the segment because we're not allowed to just show it. God forbid Comedy Central would let people comment on their material without turning the video off. But he shows a montage of O'Leary negotiating with Shark Tank contestants,
that was so stupid.
Where they say that their valuation is high, where they list a certain valuation of their company that they're trying to get the sharks to invest in. And O'Leary starts arguing with them about how, no, your valuation is too high. It's too high. It's too high. You're overvaluing. Well, doesn't that demonstrate that the other side has some autonomy?
Of course.
As to
That's
like
a
negotiating
negotiation.
power? That's the whole
It's a
point.
Negotiation.
Right. That's the whole point.
I said this when we talked about this the other day. If I say, listen, I'm selling the Gandhi here, I want $50,000 for it, and somebody says yes, did I defraud them?
Right.
That's something we agreed to. You feel it's worth $50,000. That's, to some extent, that's in the eye of the beholder. You're willing to pay that.
Right. And speaking
it's not
of
a public service.
Of course. Of course. And speaking of eye of the beholder, perhaps some person thought that Jon Stewart's duplex was worth more than a regular duplex on the market because it was Jon Stewart's, right? It's like in Seinfeld. Yeah, it's John Voight's car. You know, I bought the previous owner was John Voight, right?
Well, and there's another thing. This is what I said. I didn't even understand this until I read this article. The assessed value is always far below the market value. The assessed value that your property taxes are based on are always way under the market value. I mean, that's
obviously
that's not just in real estate business. That's just if you're going to buy a house. You're not paying the assessed value, but you are on the taxes on that property.
So Stewart sold his 6,280 square foot Tribeca duplex for $17.5 million in 2014. $17.5 million. Stewart also contended that failing to declare a higher market value on a property while paying taxes based on a lower assessed value constitutes fraudulent behavior. Oh, sorry, what did I do? I fucked that one up. In 2014, Stewart sold his 6,280 square foot Tribeca duplex to financier Parag Pandey for $17.5 million. The property's asking price at that time is not available in listing records. But according to 2013 and 2014 assessor records obtained by the Post, the property had the estimated market value at only $1.882 million. The actual assessor valuation was even lower at about $847,000. Records also show that Stewart paid significantly lower property taxes, which were calculated based on that assessor valuation price, precisely what he called Trump out for doing in his Monday monologue. Pandey, who purchased the penthouse from Stewart, then resold the property at a nearly 26% loss, according to The Real Deal, just over $13 million in 2021. Well, in fairness.
Nobody cared about owning a house formerly owned by Pandey.
Well, that was also when New York real estate took a dive because of the pandemic. A lot of people were fleeing for the suburbs. So fair is fair. You can't really cite that as an argument. Meanwhile, the New York assessor valuation on Stewart's former penthouse is the exact same citation method and metric that New York Attorney General Letitia James used to value Trump's private and personal properties and then sued him for inflating those assets. Market value was never considered throughout the case. And then this is something that Stewart made mention of, too.
Wow. I did not even realize that. This case, I thought the case was bullshit before. Now it's mind-boggling that they even brought this case, much less won it in court.
Right.
It's so clearly it was clearly a political prosecution before, but now it's just really, wow, they actually brought this case. I can't believe that. You could sue. I mean, O'Leary is right. You could fucking bring in anybody on this basis.
Oh, of course. Well, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious. The difference they put here at the end between Stewart and Trump's case is that Trump also sometimes lied to lenders about how big his properties were, including the square footage of his Trump Tower apartment.
Well, he definitely seems like the kind of guy who would lie about how big he is.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, he's definitely, at least what we said. We definitely said
I'm telling you, honey, it's 12 inches if it's an inch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And what made this segment especially frustrating and what makes Jon Stewart especially frustrating is that whatever his politics and, however he has succumbed to the libs since that opening monologue he did on his first show back about how Biden's too old, he is talented. He is funny. Like this piece was actually funny. I found myself hating it, but laughing at it at the same time. Like he has skills. And that's what makes it all the more a shame, because if you could put those skills to use in a really good way, right? To actually tell the truth about things rather than, I mean, even the opening sentence of this monologue, the big news of the day, Trump's bond. That's not the big news of the day, man. There's a genocide going on. There's a starvation going on. This is not the big news of the day. No one gives a fuck about this except the people who are in the kind of bubble that watch your show still and watch MSNBC still. Like, this is not the big news. But even that, he did this funny bit where he says, I've been waiting for this moment since 2016 when the Trump empire is going to fall. And he takes out a confetti cannon and shoots it in the air and the audience laughs. And then he does the Daily Show thing where they start playing all of the ways in which the tide turns. And it cuts back to him and he starts putting the confetti back in the cannon. And then it plays another clip and he takes a little handheld vacuum out. Like, it's good comedy. Yeah. Like, it is actually funny. Like, Trevor Noah wasn't funny, and so like it wasn't interesting on any level. This is like, man, I find myself hating you but still laughing at you at the same time. He is a real talent, which makes it all the more shameful that he puts it to use in this way. Mehdi Hasan, same way. He's actually good. He actually has a skill set.
Sure.
He just almost always uses it to parrot conformity, which is just such a waste. It's such a waste because average people can use their average talent in that way. You want especially bright people, especially gifted people, to use it in some other way, in a way that actually provides some real enlightenment. And since that first monologue, which was not a brilliant monologue, but it was a solid monologue about Biden's being too old, since then, yeah, he's been making up for that ever since. They brought him to heel real quick.
Well, apparently in his second episode, he kind of doubled down and poked the bear. Well, some people didn't like and then I guess he got a phone call. I guess
right.
Hey, you see what happened to that whistleblower?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Apparently he shut up. As I said, that is exactly why he should have stayed retired, because he is talented. And if he had missed a step when he came back, you could say, yeah, he was probably better back then. But now what I come away watching him saying is, no, he was probably always this person you just didn't notice. He was probably always bullshitting, and because he was so talented, it looked credible. Because now that you know better and you see him using all the same techniques, that's what happened to me with John Oliver. My John Oliver moment was when he did the third party thing, where he completely misrepresented Jill Stein's position. And I saw that he sold it exactly the way he sells anything else. So how do you know when he's lying? Unless you personally know the fact set, as I did in that case. Same thing with Stewart.
Well, I mean, on the other hand, yes, I did know the fact set during those Iraq War days, too. I paid close attention. So, like, they checked out in that way. Because don't forget, everything has kind of changed now.
I didn't say everything he said, But
I
I
know.
bet
I'm
you
just
there
saying.
were a lot of segments that you swallowed, that I swallowed pre-2016, that were probably bullshit. And you just didn't catch it because you didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't look for other sources of information. I didn't.
Well, I did. That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of the Iraq War stuff, because don't forget, everybody's politics it just became inside out once Trump came onto the scene. All of a sudden, the Democrats became the neocons, which meant that Democrat-affiliated media had to make that same switch, had to make that same exact pivot.
Yeah.
So the entire ethos of these operations changed on a dime.
Sure. Yes and no. I mean, he didn't spend 10 years exclusively covering Iraq. He covered a lot of things.
Well, I'm just saying
a
the
lot
stuff
of
that
those
that
stories
stands out
where he
as
got
significant.
into, where he used the typical techniques that he still uses, that he used on the problem, where you get somebody who you know is not camera ready, not media ready, and you get that person to represent the side of the argument that you want to knock down. I am sure if you went back and you watched a lot of old Daily Show, you would find a lot of cases where he was representing what we would consider the wrong position, but he sold it and you bought it.
Please clap.